And now we will move on to the panel session, which we have a few questions set aside, but if you have any questions that are coming up for you, please put them in the Q&A. And I'm going to start off with a question actually that Pravina came up with. Where did her question go? I lost her question. Okay, I will come back to that one. Sorry about that. Question that I also pulled from the chat. So we're taught to strive for excellence, right? This is something that we all, I mean, especially in healthcare, and in the world that we live in today, it's all about excellence, right? We want a center of excellence. We want to do this with excellence, and that's all well and good, but it often turns into perfection. So how do we work that with self-compassion? How do we include self-compassion in that? How can we shift our mindsets and ultimately shift our culture? Lorenzo, I'm going to start with you since you were just talking.
All right, so how do we shift our mindset from one of perfection, all right, to one of a growth-related mindset? Well, I think it's a great question. Probably the biggest thing that I think of is that I actually think that the idea of being perfect actually in and of itself interferes with discovery, all right? To be perfect at a thing or whatnot does not allow for those, if you will, pleasant mistakes or accidents and let you to see different things, all right? The next thing that I do when I think about perfection is I try to get people out of this. It's almost like, because part of perfectionism is like, it has to be like almost punitive in regards to like, if I don't do it this way, if I don't do it X, Y, Z, this is a reflection on who I am. And so part of the thing I think with perfection is like the outcome has to be X, Y, or Z. I emphasize, for me, what is your process? And are you mindful of the process? And are you appreciative and grateful for that? The outcome will be what the outcome is be. That doesn't mean I'm not outcome driven, but I think that to me starts to, amongst other ways, starts to get at it. But I'm curious what our other panelists have to say.
Thank you. Jim, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, you know, perfectionism is a disease from which I suffer. And,
me too.
And many of us, I think, do. What I have found very helpful over the years is laughing at myself. Not taking myself so bloody seriously. Oh. That's number one. And that's the most important. And that brings me out of that trap of rumination if I can get to that place. The other is I keep in mind the statement that Miles Davis once made to somebody who was interviewing him and said, interviewer said, Miles, what happens if you play a wrong note? What do you do? He said, man, so there's no such thing as wrong notes or right notes. It's the next note that counts. And that fits in a little bit with what Lorenzo was saying. It's what's happening next. It's how you deal with it. It's how you accommodate it. And the final thing is to keep in mind that when the Zen monks create those gardens, and that little slide you had, that last slide reminded me of it, they always make an imperfection. They never make it perfectly symmetrical because they're reminding us, ain't nothing perfect. This is life, and life is the way it is with all its complexities and changes and imperfections.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I just wanted to, I'm sorry, my team, I'm sorry, Dr. Don. Dr. Gordon, when I was thinking about that last picture you shared with us, what would have happened if you didn't get lost or you didn't know your way? Yeah, I mean, I'm just sorry.
That's true. That's true.
Excellent point. Thank you. Now, please do feel free to jump in, but I will turn over to Francois.
You know, lots of wisdom already. The benefits of getting older is to really put things in perspective, and we know that this perfection certainly not only doesn't exist, but attaching our self-worth to complete unrealistic goals is really pretty self-destructive. And so, you know, I'm really trying to encourage now people to think, is this working for you, right? That question, is this working for you? And, you know, is beating yourself up really, really working? And it's a hard look to realize, no, it's not. And, you know, how how do I still thrive and strive and maybe reach for the stars, but with a different approach, maybe more from a purpose approach, meaning approach, mindful approach, and like you said, Lorenzo, less punitive.
And something for us all to strive for. And I know it's something that I am working on as well, Jim. So something I will take all of your tips. And the laughing at yourself is something my husband always tells me to do. So I will have to tell him later this evening that you agree with him and that he's right, which is also something that I'm working on saying more, that he's right. So he'll be very happy to hear all of that. Next question, and I'm going to start with you, Francoise. How do you integrate positivity and saying no? Because they almost seem diametrically opposed, right?
Yes and no. I think so. First of all, let me.
Hope you break it up there.
No, it's extraordinarily difficult. Sorry, are you hearing me now?
Yes, you sound good now.
Okay. All right, we'll go back. All those tips are really, simple, meaning that a 5 years old could do it, and at the same time, they're very difficult. So saying no, it's very, very difficult. And so I kind of laugh and say, at least do not say yes. That's, okay. That's just buy you some time, and so you can have the strength to maybe stay true to yourself and say no. Positivity to me is this literally, it's more than the glass half full. Is okay, you still have a glass. You don't have a glass, you have your hand. You don't have a hand, okay, there's a faucet. I mean, just this really looking for what's right. But I think that what we are referring to is how every single tip that I talk about, a 5 years old, maybe a 3 years old kid could do it. And why and how is it so difficult for us now, grown up, to do it? So, again, more room for introspection and self-awareness. And why is it so difficult? And I'm not pretending I have an answer, because it's all personal. It's all personal. But if you think again, a 5 years old kid will have no problem to tell you no, and be positive, and to be mindful, and to be grateful. I mean, all of this, and to have a great sense of humor, and to play. And for us, it seems like it has become more complicated.
Thank you. Lorenzo, or Jim, you want to go for it.
I can go, yeah.
There's an experiment that I've done for years and taught to other people, is to look in a mirror and say no, and say it soft, say it loud, go up and down, and then do that for a couple of minutes, and then say yes into the mirror. So it's a question of exploring, what does it mean to you? What does it feel like? And it's different for everybody. Some people, it's very easy to say yes and difficult to say no. Some, it's vice versa. But it's a question of playing with it and exploring it, and not being frightened of either the yes or no. And if you're frightened, feel the fright and say no. Go into that whole space, because I think this is, we're in a culture where it's not easy. You mentioned 5-year-olds, Francoise. It's easier in some ways for 5-year-olds, although they get socialized very fast. Children are often taught from infancy, what they should do and what they should not do, what you can say yes to, what you can say no to, or even if you can say no to anything. So I think it's something that we have to explore, see where we are on this spectrum of what yes and no mean to us. And then we become freed from the habits, the habitual, the learned ways of doing things, and we can respond more spontaneously. It's a very interesting exercise. And I recommend doing it for a couple of minutes at a time, couple of minutes no's, couple of minutes yeses, and then put on some music and just move your body and see what happens.
I think it's great, everything that's said. Let me put a little bit of my take on it. I think that, yes, saying no can certainly be challenging. I think if we look at what Francois and Jim said, I think part of actually starting to say no starts with the exercises that you do with yourself in terms of being mindful and aware of a couple of things. One, what are your own purpose, your values, and your goals? Second, realizing, I want to say Francois said this, but I'll say it, you have a right to say no, and you have a right to be compassionate towards yourself. If someone responds to you in kind of a negative way, that's okay. That's okay. And then, so I think about what are your own personal values and goals, but then I also think about what are the goals or the principles or the mission or the purpose that are the collaborative ones, because that gives you, because a lot of times when we say no, it feels like we're hurting somebody. So you want to take that element or balance it a little bit. Yes, you are, but if you're saying no because you understand the greater purpose, particularly if it's collaborative, then that's something that you want to do. And then I love what Jim said, because there's no mistake for this, or no substitute. Practice it. Practice it. And then if you don't get it right, don't beat yourself up. And big shout out to Irene here, another pearl, which I love. And I think this is very helpful. If you practice it, but if you give no with the explanation, I think that's, and you are cool with that, that's about all you can do. All right. You give no with the explanation, but I'm gonna add another thing to it. The way in which you practice giving the explanation is give an explanation with the yes also. That way you're constantly building those habits.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So Jennifer had a question. She actually wanted to apologize. She had to leave, but she will be watching this on the recording and let you all know that there will be a recording available. So if you miss any of this, you can watch that. Her question really is about aging and how learning might change with aging. And she feels like she has to prioritize because she doesn't feel like she has the ability to age or to learn the same way she did prior to now when she was younger. And how do you suggest picking those battles? What are the most important techniques for her to start with? Or do you have a different approach you suggest?
Well, I had my teacher for many years was a self-described mad Indian. He was from Kashmir. He was total madman, brilliant healer, and very funny. And when I talked a little bit about not remembering things at times, he said to me, don't worry, if it's really important, it will be there when you need it. So and that's been very helpful to me as, as my memory. And I actually can't tell if it's better or worse than when I was 20 years old. I've forgotten. No, I'm just kidding. But it's true, because at times we underestimate, because there's so much out there, and I'll be really interested to hear what the rest of you think. There's so much out there in the culture that's saying these faculties are going to deteriorate as you grow older. I don't know how true it is. I know, there's some cognitive decline, but I'm not sure that we can't learn new things easily. I think it's a question of what's really important to us, what's really important that we learn, and what has meaning to us. I think there is a sense that we have as we get older that we need to focus a bit more on what's meaningful. We don't have so much time to just kind of waste or let go. So I think that's what she's got to look at. What does she really want to learn? What does she care about? Don't do something just because somebody else thinks it's a good idea. If it's something that you feel passionate about and that's really important to you, you can learn it. I.F. Stone, you probably know, was a wonderful political commentator. When he was in his 80s, he wanted to learn ancient Greek. And anybody who's tried to learn a new language as an adult knows it's difficult, but he did it because he wanted to read Plato in the original. And okay, that was his thing. So I think that's the most important thing. What do you want to learn? What's important to you? And then noticing if you're bringing in sort of preconceived notions about what you can and cannot learn as you grow old.
I'll open it up to whoever feels so moved.
You want to go, Francois, or I can go? All right. So I think it's a great question. I'm just going to echo what Jim said. I mean, with a couple of little things, I think that when you look at it, yes, forgetfulness does happen with all of us getting older. A good way to just kind of, in terms of, I'll probably, you talk about memory, but I would actually say in terms of just the best way to think about memory in terms of like prevention or making it do what it needs to do is actually really to just focus on your whole health, because everything, the body and the system is completely integrated. So your exercise, your nutrition, all of these principles still work with your brain, even if you're not like, if you will, if your hippocampus or what have you isn't where it needs to be, not where it needs to be, but if it has normal age-related stuff. But I thought that Jim said probably maybe one of the most important things, which all of us have actually been saying it, routine, but then the other thing, develop a new skill that's important to you. And then I would probably say, I see this a lot, don't beat yourself up over if you can't remember all this stuff, because the important stuff that you will, and here's a flip side, I might say, and I'm not talking about dementia or something of that nature, maybe you lean into it. I don't know about others. I mean, y'all can see my gray now. There's some things I was actually happy I forgot. Wow, that was just a burden. I didn't need that. All right, that's good. But all the important stuff that I keep recalling, that's there. So
just want to call out real quickly before you go, Francoise, that one of our faculty members, Mark Webster, just pointed out that maybe we're trading memory for wisdom. And I love that. And so we have to call that out there.
Oh, Lee, that's good. Ooh, I'm gonna write that down right. That's good.
I was just going to mention that, and I don't have much to add. I think that a comment that I heard is that our library is getting bigger because we put more memories and more experience in it, and so it takes a longer time to find a book, because we don't have a small bookshelf. We have a gigantic library. So that talk a little bit about self-compassion again, and with Jim and Lorenzo, you mentioned that as well. So yeah, I agree with my colleagues here.
Yeah, it's like if your computer is loaded with data, it takes longer to get things, but it's still working. Your brain's still working. There's just more in there. I love that. Okay, so a little bit more technical sciencey question here.
I knew these was, yeah.
So in terms of science of the autonomic nervous system, wondering if there are online groups that want to do heavy chemistry. So by autonomic nervous system, they were thinking neuroepithelial pathway or Th17. So we're talking immunology, really hardcore stuff. Does anyone know of people working on that type of thing? Or yes, maybe not exactly the right group for this, because you guys are not lab scientists.
Yeah, that's I'll be honest. Wisdom is knowing when you don't know. That's a little bit out of my wheelhouse. But there are a lot of good comments going on in the chat. Misha put up something very instructive in regards to memory decline. So let's go to that. Yeah, and I agree with Irene in terms of that sense of never forget to be in awe of everything. I think that's a core component of, I know it's a core component of some forms of existential psychotherapy. I want to say Breitbart might have had that as an element of his therapy for cancer patients when I was doing that. But yeah.
Yeah. So let me read Misha Kogan's comment, because this is definitely his wheelhouse.
Yes.
So he says the actual memory decline is not normal, which that makes sense. I'm with you. It is the speed of processing and capacity to multitask that decline. So very similar to what you were saying, Francoise. It's the processing speed and that ability to multitask. So you do have to slow down to learn. So you have to honor the change, but there's no memory loss. And that memory loss is actually not normal. So if you are seeing memory loss, then you need to go see your doctor like Misha Kogan, and he will help you with that. But otherwise, your bigger library and taking longer to process, that's completely normal. So thank you for that.
I think people confuse memory loss with forgetfulness, or the library being a bit big and it taking longer to find the book.
Good point. Good point. Okay, we have a question from Pravina. How do you deal with millennials when it comes to managing, motivating, and inspiring them as leaders? This group of young professionals are extremely smart, but lack the maturity. And I would just like to point out that I'm a millennial. So we're not all like that. Though I'm technically in the Oregon Trail mini generation, where I don't really belong in Gen X or millennials, but most people would put me in the millennial group. But anyway, generalization, how do you work with people who are maybe a little bit younger? And beyond millennials, now we got Gen Z who are in the workforce.
I'm sorry, work with them meaning what?
To get them to grow into leaders. How do you motivate them and manage them? Inspire them. That's the other word.
I'm happy to.
I don't know that it's. Well, go ahead.
Go ahead, Lauren.
Sort of contemplating why.
I think we all reflecting, because I said, well, I know plenty 50, 60, 70 years old that are really hard to motivate personally. So I'm careful about making a generalization, and you know, I think that dropping judgment is, you know, something that I'm personally trying to do, and it can only be done when I'm replenished and I feel that I'm resilient myself. Dropping judgment, dropping expectation, and then, you know, trying to put myself in someone else's shoes, and inviting people of all circumstances, all age, to talk about meaning and purpose, which can be a little overwhelming at times, right? Because people think, oh my God, okay, I need to create a GW Resiliency Center. Whoa! But it can be, well, something much simpler than that is just as important. You know, how am I going to try to be kind today, or not judgmental, or, you know, whatever this decision I'm making, that today my purpose and my intention is going to be. So I would have to say the commonality is trying to put ourselves in someone else's shoes, and see the world from that angle, suspend judgment, and see if we can also discover their purpose, because living a life without purpose is really sad. And so I think that, you know, if we can help anyone to find meaning and purpose, then we will certainly motivate them. But I would go with that angle.
I agree with many of the things that were said, and you have to be very careful about generalizing, because a lot of times, you know, there are, you know, differences between every generation. With that being said, I think a couple of things come to mind with millennials, or those, you know, even, you know, different generations. The first thing that I think about is hierarchy, and making sure that people in different groups that you work with, the hierarchy is, for lack of a better word, it is flat. There's definitely more expressiveness and feedback and expectation that people want to be heard and listened to, and they have a right to actually speak X, Y, or Z or whatnot. And depending on what generation you're from, that could be a little bit different, okay? The next thing I think is that you also want to make sure that you are open to new ideas, particularly of doing things efficiently using technology, all right? Don't just do something just because it needs to be done, or you did it this way. So I think being open to ideas, and particularly when it comes to technology and efficiency. And then the other thing that I'll add, which isn't really so much a change, because I like what Francois said. In my experience, the millennials are just as purposeful or passionate, even at times more so than the 50 or the 60 years old, because they don't have any tolerance for politics or doing X, Y, or Z that doesn't actually make a difference, or it's impactful. Many of them can you know what? I can start my own business or X, Y, or Z. I don't have to deal with this unless I understand the purpose. So I kind of feel like I want to lean into that a bit. And that can be a challenge because I've had plenty of folks like, Lorenzo, why do I have to understand the politics? Well, because blah, blah, blah. Well, no, why do I have to? I'm like, I get it. So those are just my thoughts. I mean, again, but I echo, you don't want to, ultimately you want to go with everybody where they're at, but it's a common thing and it's a common thing. And it's something we just want to embrace. So I think I understand the question. Absolutely. A common informal resiliency and well-being center consult. People don't actually consult for it, but they do ask us on the elevator, or at least ask me a lot about that.
What I would add to this is that as a doctor or as a person, if other people come to me and first of all, there has to be some reason for them to want to change. If they don't want to change, I'm not here to motivate people who are not interested. I'm here to help people see if there is anything that they are interested in. So for example, just two brief stories. One is some years ago, a couple brought their teenage daughter to me. She had been, she'd been cutting her wrists. She'd had hallucinations. She was suicidal. She'd been in the hospital. She'd been on half a dozen different kinds of medication. None of it had done any good. And she came to me and she said, nobody can help me. She said, this is the way I am and I don't want any help and I'm fine the way I am. Other people call me crazy. They call me suicidal. I don't care. It's my parents' problem. It's not mine. I said, fine. Is there anything that you would like any help with? And she said, yeah, these pimples on my face. So that's where we began. And the things that I prescribed for her complexion would not be strange to be prescribing for somebody who was depressed or anxious. We changed her diet. We got her into doing exercise, some meditation, but we were working on what she wanted and everything turned around for her. She didn't need medication anymore. She stopped cutting her wrists. She got her act together. My son's 19 now. He was not the slightest bit interested certainly in meditation or in most of the things that I was doing until he started to get serious about playing ball, initially basketball and then football. At that point, meditation became important so that he could relax at the foul line. And he became a 90% foul shooter.
That's great.
Because he was in it, but it wasn't important to him until that point. And then he became very serious about it. So I think we have to look, what's the opening? What do other people care about, as opposed to perhaps what we think they should be caring about?
That's wonderful. And I would add that the stages of change are the very first step in the integrative medicine approach, because that's what you have to figure out is where is your patient so you can meet them where they are. So love that. Love that. We are running out of time, but I wanted to give each one of you a chance to sort of give your last thoughts. Francoise, since you started us off, I will start with you.
Last thought is, I'm going to make it personal, how wonderful it was to be together. And I learned a lot from you. And we are learning how to make this very meaningful and special, even though we are doing this on Zoom. But this was a gift to me, so I appreciate that. And I hope that all attendants enjoy our dialogue, but this was a gift to me and I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you, Francoise. Jim, final thoughts.
Just enjoying being here and realizing that it will be important to get together in person here in DC, that we need to have, I appreciate your doing this very much. And I think it's important that for me, it'd be interesting to see what else can happen, what can unfold. And I think I know what we've missed over these last couple of years is in-person connection. And I've realized, you know, not that I knew it was important to me, but I realized how important that can be, and what can come out of it. So I'm looking forward to hearing, seeing what can come out as we come together and explore what we can do here in this particular town that we're in. Francoise, you can come visit or bring us there, but people need to come together, and we need to come up with ways of approaching issues, problems, concerns, where we can share different perspectives and come together. I think too many of us spend too much time in the cliche is a silo, but it's not a bad word for it. Too much time in silos, and we don't spend enough time out in the open fields with each other. So I'll look forward to that.
Perfect. Thank you. Lorenzo, final thoughts.
I agree with everything that's been said. A gift, and the fact that I really, 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 which I think speaks to the energy. And I want to thank you, Lee, and everyone who put this together. And also, I mean, I agree with Jim. We really need to do this in person. And if you just look at the chat right now, I'm just like upset. I'm trying to be mindful and not upset, Francois. I'm trying to be appreciative. But I'm seeing all this great stuff from Misha and Irene and Ashley. And I'm like, these could be some great, I mean, maybe Jim could give me some advice on shooting the foul shot. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's good stuff. So, I mean, I just echo what everybody else said. And I can't wait to see, hopefully, us do this again and in person. And I don't think, we even have to wait. I agree, Misha, again, you're always so wise with your words. I agree. We have to be moving beyond just pandemic, and we want to embrace and live our lives with a curious, appreciative, and grateful spirit.
Well, thank you so much. I am very appreciative of all of you and very appreciative of this group. And I agree, we do need to get together in person. There's definitely something special about that. I'm going to see Francoise in May at the International Congress, which I'm looking forward to. But maybe we will do something here in DC. We have a really wonderful event every Friday, which actually we suspended this week for this wonderful symposium, but every Friday at 2:00 we have a mindfulness experience, and Jim has been on that several times. Lorenzo, you've been on it. We might have to get Francoise on it now. It's a really great community that we started to have that connection during the pandemic when we couldn't be in person, and we're continuing it now. And I think that it's a really great opportunity for us to have a little bit of social connection when maybe we're too busy or we aren't able to get out and be with people. So I think also thinking outside the box as to what social connection needs to be is another important take home, that it doesn't always have to be a grand gesture. It could be something small just to keep that that connection going. For instance, when you think of your best friend, just text your best friend and tell them you're thinking of them. Like something really simple like that can really help with connection. It doesn't have to be, I'm flying out to Cleveland to see Francoise. I could just text her and say, I really loved your talk today. Thank you so much. Little things matter. So with that, we will sign off, and I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend and it's very restorative and gets you all ready for Monday.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.